welcome back to Greedy Dragon Brewing. I'm Nexia. Today I got a special episode. I'm going to be doing a brew showcase from AllenF's stouts that he sent me in the mail. You may recall that from one of my previous episodes. I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. I've got my Dragon's IPA in the fermenter, and I'm going to transfer that in the next day or so into a secondary and let it clear a little bit. I've got some wine going, and I bought a wine kit, so I'm probably going to post a video in the next little while doing a wine kit. A little step-by-step process. Also, I'm building a Herm system, so I'll have some footage of that. That's kind of exciting, taking the brewing to the next level. So today I'm going to be showcasing two of the beers that Allen sent me. His rum oatmeal stout and Fuller's bourbon oatmeal stout. Now, as you recall, I only recently got into trying stouts and darker beers. Mostly an IPA fan myself, and I like hop heavy beers. So this is a little bit of an experience, so please bear with me. The other thing is that Allen is a very special brewer. He originally started out brewing a long time ago, and just recently got back into brewing after a long period in between. So he sent me a letter with his beer package, and I think it would be better for me to read the letter as opposed to try to wing it, just to give a little bit of background to this brewer and give a little bit of history. So I'm going to do that. So I apologize for not going off the cuff, but sometimes that's just how it is. So this is what he said. He said, "Hello Nexia, I brewed my first wine in 1973 when I was 22. We brought a truckload of cherries back from Creston, British Columbia, and couldn't eat, cook, or give away all of them, so I made cherry wine. I didn't really know what I was doing, followed a neighbor's advice, and ended up with a high alcohol and tannin content wine that was difficult to drink until the third glass. I threw away the last gallon of that wine. In 1974, a friend and I tried to make beer from scratch with no experience, little equipment on hand, and a recipe handwritten from an uncle's friend. We used my wine fermenting bucket, my wife's canning equipment, as well as a rubber mallet for capping. The first two batches were complete failures, with the third and final batch being partially drinkable. I can recall us making 2 cases of beer, fishing, and throwing away about 1.5 cases into the lake. We gave up, and I didn't make any wine or beer for decades. Fast forward 35 years, and I met my current golfing buddy. He brewed wine kits as a hobby. We started brewing together, and I did about 60 bottles per year for myself, my wife, our kids, and friends. I have health concerns for the last 20 years, and I was advised recently that unpasteurized malt might help. I found out how easy kit brewing can be. You are sampling my first batch. Since then, I have brewed a hard lemonade and a cherry beer. My next brew will be an English bitter. That's my brewing history. Enjoy the beer." And then he sent a little overview of the ingredients from the brews, so I'll kind of go over that as I try them out. So, as you know, I'm not experienced too much when it comes to stouts, but I'm going to give this a whirl and do my best. I'm pretty excited because, you know, his brewing is quite ambitious. After starting out, having not brewed for so long, to come right out and throw in oak chips and make a bourbon oatmeal stout and a rum oatmeal stout, that's quite an ambitious attempt at brewing right off the bat. So either way, no matter how this beer turns out, I mean, even look at the custom labels. I mean, that in itself says a lot about the home brewing mantra and how anybody can try, and just it's worthwhile to experiment. So I'm going to start out with the bourbon oatmeal stout. So we got a good hiss there. There's a bit of smoke coming out of the top, so that's a good sign. So as you can see out of this one, there's not a lot of head. In fact, none at all. A very dark, opaque color, so you can't see through it. Beer is fairly clear. A little bit of sediment and so forth floating around. There may have been a little bit of yeast on the bottom. And you can really get that bourbon off the nose. You got bourbons, really no hops, little bit of malt, and you can get that oak. I definitely get a little oak. So I'm just gonna take a look at the ingredients again. So he soaked 4 grams of American oak chips with 4.5 ounces of Booker's bourbon for 5 days. Then he added the oak chips and bourbon to 3 liters of Belgian oatmeal stout to a secondary container and removed the oak after 9 days. And then he bulk primed with 30 grams of Munton's priming powder and bottled it. So let's give it a taste. Now it looks like the carbonation, it was lightly carbonated to begin with, and it's kind of died out a little bit. So it's very interesting because you're getting a lot of flavors that I'd be more accustomed to getting out of wines. So you really get that oakiness, and it kind of predominates the palate. You get a lot of oakiness up front. You get a nice hint of bourbon, and really not too much. The bourbon's not overwhelming, but you definitely can pick up that bourbon right away. You're not really getting a lot of maltiness. Maybe a hint of, chocolate malt or, roasted barley. So you kind of have that roastiness, a little bit of maybe nuttiness, but predominantly you're getting that oak flavor coming through. It's a little bit light on the carbonation, but it's not so light that the beer is not flat. You definitely get a little bit of wash of carbonation over the palate. Yeah, this is a very decent beer. I mean, it'd be nice if you could get a little bit more of a head retention, or get some head retention out of that. Perhaps maybe it's because it was added to an extract base. I'm not quite sure on that. But maybe if you could bump up the maltiness just a little bit, maybe steep some other grains or do a mini mash, with your kits. Something just to get the head retention up a little bit. But very nice bourbon flavors and oakiness, and that's one of the reasons why I was very keen to try Allen's beers, is because a lot of us go out and we try the traditional beers. We do a clone of a beer that we're familiar with, or we do the kits right off the bat, but very few of us go and experiment. And right off the bat, Allen steps right back into the home brewing mecca and starts playing around with oak flavors and bourbon, and very impressive. So I think with a little bit of tweaking, this could be a very nice beer. As it stands, it's got really good flavor, but it still needs a little bit of work. So cheers to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a fresh glass, and then I'm going to give the rum oatmeal stout a try.